Well, we're back, and today we're actually going to be doing what I teased doing in the last video, which was going through the first hour of both Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, and quite frankly, just looking at both of them holistically from the experience the player gets in the first hour and compare the two of them. Now, I am coming from a position, just for your awareness, where I think Destiny 1 is a better game at this time, but hopefully the first hour will go into a little bit of the details and the reasons why, as we can see side by side both games. Both of these perspectives were recorded from a brand new player, owning all of the available content that you could purchase at the time of recording both of these, which is literally everything up until Renegades for Destiny 2, and in D1, it's just the standard Destiny 1 that you can buy that has everything in it. So yeah, we're just gonna jump in. We're pausing at a few different times, cutting back and forth between both games, and just giving thoughts. And yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Now, to start off, Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, I have the identical intro cutscene, so not a whole lot to discuss here. But it is interesting at the very beginning of the cutscenes, you actually see the Activision logo in the Destiny 1 frame versus Destiny 2. They've completely removed Activision, which makes sense. They're no longer involved in Destiny at any capacity, as far as we're aware, as Sony owns them high and dry pretty much. Now, once we start getting into the details of the actual gameplay, we're going to be going through again the first hour. I literally set a timer for playing both games for only an hour to see how far I could get, see what I could get through, and we're mainly going to focus on kind of progression, focus on maybe some story elements as well, and just the major differences a new player would kind of be thrown into when they're playing the game. Now, before we actually get into the gameplay, real quick, I do want to preface the cutscene that just ended is just the traditional. That's when you launch the game cutscene. There is about a 5 minute intro clip for Destiny 1, the original Destiny 1 intro context. It leaves a lot more unknown and unexplained, which makes sense. At the time it was recorded, over a decade ago, we didn't have all the expansions, we didn't have all the explored and expanded narrative, but it definitely sets the stage for Destiny 1 to be more of a mystery, for more of the player's journey to be kind of unfolded in front of them. They're the ones that kind of write their path. And at the time of listening to it, I think the entire Destiny community was like, we want to know more about the world that we're in. And in hindsight, it was probably really perfect at the time and perfect to remain the kind of setup to the entire universe of Destiny. When you compare it to the Destiny 2 opening cutscene, they definitely throw a lot of information at you. They do get kind of the foundational stuff, what the Traveler is, what Guardians are, what Ghosts are. They kind of establish all that, the collapse, the mysterious darkness. But the issues that I have with the second one is it has to do some more heavy, it has to do some heavy lifting because it has, nearly 9-10 years of story that it has to some capacity touch a few different points in time. Like it has to touch and talk about the fact that there are Hive Guardians and the Witch Queen. It actually mentions those. It talks about all of the different races, which I thought was an interesting decision by Bungie. The Destiny 2 intro cutscene, it mentions the Vex, the Cabal, the Hive, the Fallen, and it describes them to the player. Whereas in Destiny 1, we never are introduced to any of them until you're fighting them in the game. So it almost adds an allure, a mystery element to these races, meeting them for the first time. Another thing that the Destiny 2 cutscene does in the beginning is it actually kind of defines like what Guardians are, their purpose, them protecting humanity, and it even talks about like them fighting each other, but now we don't fight each other anymore. And it almost is setting up the framework of what a Guardian is in a more rigid approach. Like it's kind of telling you this is what Guardians do. We're good, we're moral, we're supposed to be all these things. Whereas the Destiny 1 opening cutscene doesn't really go into any of that. It doesn't kind of set the framework for what the player should expect a Guardian to be. It literally just says, hey, the Traveler came, gave us all these awesome things, and then we all just about died in the collapse. And then that's pretty much the ending of the Destiny 1 cutscene. And Destiny 2, they kind of go on and on and on about how Destiny or the Guardians are the ultimate, saviors of humanity. We're supposed to protect everybody. We're supposed to be moral and humble and stuff like that, which is fine. They're allowed to do that. But I honestly think that more mystery into the world of Destiny, like are all Guardians good or all Guardians bad? Who are these enemies we're fighting? What's our purpose in this world? A lot of those questions are left unanswered or even unaddressed in Destiny 1's opening cutscene, which I think allowed everybody who played that game to let their mind go wild at the possibilities. And listening to the Destiny 2 cutscene, it almost closes the world in or makes it feel more rigid and confined because you're having all these elements of the world that they're defined. It's kind of telling you this is how the world is, whereas the Destiny 1 is like, what is the world? You know, it's up to you to discover what it is. So that's a little harp on the opening cutscene, but from a gameplay perspective, it doesn't have much at all. Now, when we actually open up to start comparing the two games, immediately, if you've never played Destiny 2 or Destiny 1, you're going to notice that anytime we have a Destiny 1 clip, it is in 30 FPS. And I actually think that the game runs in 720p. I could be wrong on that. It could be full HD, but I think it is a lower resolution than 1080. That's nothing I can do about that. It's captured on Xbox Series X, and that's the latest version of the game. In Destiny 2, of course, you have uncapped frame rate. You've got the highest resolution that you can pop out. So you're going to notice those distinctions. They probably do make a impact on gameplay, having an increased field of view, having more frames. It does give the player more information and almost a better connection to the world to be able to move and respond to things quicker. So it definitely has an impact on how the game plays from a combat perspective. But I think that there's more going on just than the availability of information, the frame rate, the speed in which the player can respond to the game. There's definitely more going on when it comes to the differences in gameplay between the two. Now, immediately off the rip, we're going to see that in Destiny 1, the opening character screen where level 1, we have all white gear. We don't even have weapon slots unlocked at this point. We have a XP level of 1, we have a power light level of 5, and it does leave a little bit vague as to what some of these elements are, but there's not a whole lot going on the opening Destiny 1 inventory screen. And then when we transition over and quickly look at the Destiny 2 screen, it doesn't throw a crazy amount of stuff at us, but it throws a crazy amount of stuff at us when you just compare it to Destiny 1. For starters, we have the gear is actually green gear, so we've seemingly just skipped the white crappy gear rarity selection, which is okay, whatever. We also do have additional stats on the right hand side of the screen, and they're all at random values from some of the stats that this gear is giving to us. You are able to hover over and see what some of these stats individually do, but we also see that there is a power level associated with this. There's a guardian level, which you can kind of hover over and get a description of. We don't have an XP level, so there's no XP leveling system in Destiny. But then we also have like different information about champions and even like a buff that everybody has when they start playing the game. And champions are something the new player is not going to see for quite a long time. So I'm interested in the design decision behind why it's here from the beginning. And also interested to know why we've just seemingly skipped over the white rarity entirely. But that's the immediate differences you're going to know from the D1 versus D2 inventory screen. Proceeding through the first mission, the missions are identical. The actual opening one, they pretty much imported it 1-to-1 from Destiny as far as running through the wall, getting the Kvazdov auto rifle, all of that stuff. But again, you're seeing it here from a 30 FPS field of view from a uncapped one. Now, immediately, some of the things you're going to start noticing is the HUD. We've, on Destiny 2, got access to grenades, melee, our rift ability, and even the super symbol from the gate. As soon as we're open in these tunnels shooting enemies and bad guys, we've got these abilities, and the game's actually pushing the player to start using them immediately in combat in Destiny 2. The first engagements, the first packs you're coming to is always going to be reminding you, throw your grenade, throw your melee, use your rift, and immediately from the get, it's just like it's pushing players to not only shoot but also use these abilities as well. Whereas you look at Destiny 1, you are hard limited by just the guns you have for quite a while. And the guns seem to do less damage. It seems to be enemies are a little bit more squishy in D1, but again, there could be a few reasons as to why it feels like this. Now, I did mention in my first video, and I did exaggerate it a little bit, but not too much. There is a Vandal in the opening of the game that on Destiny 2 takes a significantly longer amount of time to get the player to a state where they could be killed. And again, I think this is just pointing to maybe Bungie's trying to build the game, the opening of the game for a different audience. You know, it's free to play. We have to get as many people as we can to get in the game at once. And if we throw enemies that have a higher chance to kill the players, you know, maybe I guess in Bungie's mind that's a bad thing. But in Destiny 2, you know, enemies are not that much of a threat in the opening of the game. And I kind of compared that to how a lot of free to play games make the early game easy. They don't really throw much challenge at the player until much later on as a means to get people in and keep them in. Whereas Destiny 1, you know, the expectation that Bungie had at the time is that, hey, you have to be able to aim your gun and shoot it and kill these things if you want to proceed in the game. So again, noteworthy at the Destiny 1 enemies, they hit harder. They just do. And you've got less tools at your disposal to deal with them. In Destiny 2, you've got more tools to deal with them, but they still hit not as hard. So interesting design decision there. And proceeding through the same exact mission again later on, you've got a large room with lots of enemies, not a whole lot of density, but just a good amount of enemies in general. And again, we're limited to weapons. You can transition over to Destiny 2, and it's immediately, as soon as we walk in the room, reminding us, use your super. It actually gives you your full super and all of your abilities. You continue on, you know, you eventually come outside and you're in more of an open space. Again, we're still at this point in time in D1 limited to just primary ammo and a secondary weapon. D2 we proceed. We've got, again, grenades, melees, rift. We've got a secondary weapon, of course. We've got our super. And again, it just seems to be that you can chain abilities. We've also introduced to more players at this point in time, which I think is all right. I think that's cool. But at the same time, at Destiny 1, we are just hitting level 2. So there is a leveling system in Destiny 1 to progress you forwards. And you actually unlock your first ability through that XP system, which is your grenade. So we've now unlocked our first ability, which is a grenade. Over here in Destiny 2, of course, we're throwing melees. We've already got our melee skills unlocked, all of that stuff, as we've mentioned before. Ending of the first mission does vary between both games. You've actually got a small fight with, I think, the first captain you're introduced to when it comes to the Fallen. Again, limited to one grenade, and you really only get to go throw this thing once every minute, so you get to use it one time in combat. Destiny 2, you really just don't fight any single boss to fight in the mission. I guess you face that tank, but you're introduced to Shah Han, and Shah Han kind of governs the new player onboarding experience in D2. Whereas in D1, we actually get to proceed through the original campaign. The D1 campaign and its expansion campaigns are still in the game to their full entirety. Another thing is D1, I mean, just from some of the cutscenes and different elements in the game, it almost tries to induce sort of mystery, that allure of these different factions, like what was that large, you know, Vandal at the end, the Fallen Vandal. But yeah, now, another thing to call out immediately, and I remember back in Destiny 1 not really thinking a whole lot of this, but there is an advancement screen, basically a summary screen at the end of every activity you do in Destiny 1 that gives you a description over, you know, what abilities and perks did you have XP go towards during that meeting, what different things did you unlock. And there's also like a leaderboard or a KDA screen that actually gives you extra rewards, the mission completion rewards. So in Destiny 1, we got the ship, we got a few upgrades for our character, and then actually Destiny 2, there is no kind of end of screen mission, so to speak. But right out of the gate in Destiny 1, after you've completed that first mission, you are brought to the tower, D1 tower. If you've not been to the D1 tower, I apologize. I think, and a lot of people probably think it is better than the D2 tower for various reasons, but probably nostalgia's there as well. But out of the gate, once the Destiny 1 first mission's complete, you are introduced to the different individuals from the Vanguard, Ikora, who's the Warlock, Cade the Hunter, and we are getting rewards. You're actually getting rewards for completing that, getting to her, and getting white upgrades. So we're moving from the white tier, still staying in that white tier. We're getting defense upgrades. It has, you know, anything on armor marked as defense, anything on weapons I think are marked as attack. Over in Destiny 2, for complete that first mission, we're still here, which is fine, just a prolonged mission, but we are getting rewards. And if we're comparing the rewards, we are going straight from white to blues. And also, another thing to kind of call out here, attack level on these weapons and attack levels in Destiny 2, because of how they increase their expansions, we're going straight from level 10 weapons all the way to 300. And this is something that Destiny has tried to fix, not making these big jumps so that if a new player joins in, what's the difference between a 10? I mean, I just got a weapon that's 30 times stronger than the weapon I had. It's just a weird way to start out for a new player. Another thing to point out is weapons and armor in Destiny 2, you don't have to level them up. In Destiny 1, whenever you get a green, a blue, legendaries, or exotics, you actually have to use them, and then over time you unlock their perks. In Destiny 2, you get a weapon, you've got all of its features unlocked immediately, pretty much, unless we're talking exotic catalyst, which is later on. But another thing to call out is Destiny, just in the first probably 10 minutes with the gear element, has ripped out the white chase, getting better level whites. Greens are completely far gone in Destiny 2. I think the only time you ever have greens is just the starting armor. You pretty much start immediately getting blues to drop, and the blues that do drop, they have no progression to them. You just get them and use them. Whereas Destiny 1, we're stuck on whites for a while. If we do happen to get greens and blues, we got to level them up. So again, you'll see that as a recurring theme through most of these clips. Another thing to call out is just the difference in the subclass screens. We're talking primarily about two different systems. We've got the fragments and the aspect systems in Destiny 2. In Destiny 1, we pretty much just have a single screen that contains all of the nodes that can be pretty much checked or unchecked, depending on what you want to have for that subclass. I would agree, and most people would probably agree, that the fragments and aspect system in Destiny does allow for Destiny 2. It does allow for more depth and interesting build crafting, but from its presentation to how you unlock these, in my opinion, is probably where the system struggles. In Destiny 1, you just get experience. As your character level goes up, you unlock these over time. In Destiny 2, there's 2 or 3 different ways to unlock a lot of these, and they throw a lot of them at you at once, and both of those systems combined is overall for a lesser experience, if you ask me, than unlocking them one at a time. They also throw a lot of subclass verbs at you and stuff, which is cool. Again, if you want to jump in and start doing some crazy build crafting from the get-go, Destiny 2 definitely enables you to do that. Whereas Destiny 1, you're unlocking things slowly over time. At the same state in Destiny 1, we've just unlocked our ability to do a double jump. Whereas in Destiny 2, we are already got all of our jumps, our grenades, our supers. We're getting blues already, and we're going in. But another thing to call out is the beginning destination screen for Destiny 1. You have Earth, which is the starting point for everybody, the main campaign. You do have access to play Crucible modes off of the get-go, which is nice. If you are that person who just wants to go in straight PvP, you have that option to do so. But the Destiny 1 destination screen, it starts out limited. You've only discovered Earth. You're going through the story in Destiny 1 in the very beginning to unlock and upgrade your ship. And as such, your options are limited as to where you can go. Now, Destiny 1 does have, in my opinion, an advantage in the map element, at least the destination element. And this specifically as it pertains to campaigns. In Destiny 1, campaigns are more of a standard campaign. You get one mission, one quest, and on the map it actually highlights where to go to start it. In Destiny 2, you still have that element to some degree, but a lot of the times in Destiny 2, you have to land on the destination and then run halfway across the map to start it. Whereas a lot of the time in Destiny 1, it's more of a standard routine approach to campaigns. You have a loading screen or a launch screen. You choose the mission on the map where you want to go or the activity, and you launch straight into it. Taking some time to actually review the menus and stuff that are available in both games. In Destiny 2, you've got your collections, your inventory screen, your quest screen. There are several more screens and menus in Destiny 2. There's more going on, so it makes sense that there would be. Whereas in Destiny 1, you've pretty much just got your inventory, your quest, and then your current equipped weapons and whatnot. The early game, Destiny 1, Destiny 2, again, we're looking at the usage of weapons primarily to do most of the damage, most of the combat in Destiny 1. In these early missions, as you're exploring the Cosmodrome, you are mainly relying on your primary and secondary. In Destiny 2, at the same time, you've already got your access to your heavy weapon unlocked. So, along with the additional abilities, we've already got our heavy weapon, and we're also getting blues just to drop off the ground. Again, going from an item level 10 green to a blue 300. It's not really explained, what the blue and differences between those are, other than just, hey, the item level is higher, use it kind of mentality, which will get players so far, but there are those of us who want more. Same time in Destiny 1, we're opening chests and we're getting, again, upgrades within that white tier. We're going up defense values between white items, so kind of makes sense. Ending of second mission in Destiny 2, and we are in a gunfight with more Fallen, and again, at our disposal is our weapons. We have one grenade, which has a pretty long cooldown time, so tend to rely on that. And then in Destiny 2, we are jumping up in the air. We've got multiple rockets in our rocket launcher. We've got our grenade ability that's charging, almost charged. We've got our melee, which was at our disposal. Our rift, heavy ammo is dropping pretty frequently. And then again, transitioning back over to Destiny 1, we've got Archon who's came out. We have no grenade. We have our primary hand cannon, a white hand cannon, a white shotgun, and we're at gun combat. So again, you have to kind of draw your own conclusions from the first few minutes here yourself. And I do also want to call out, I'm perfectly aware that, the people who game nowadays, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a jackass, but there is kind of this common conception everybody has that you have to do a lot of things, have to have a lot of things going on to keep people's attention nowadays. For instance, if you were to launch Destiny 1 in its exact state with no changes, no quality of life, people would criticize the mission design, people would criticize the speed in which the game plays. And again, you just compare it directly to Destiny 2. A lot more things happen really quickly. A lot more enemies are on your screen. You can be having all kinds of abilities going off at the same time. You can have all kinds of weapon effects going off at the same time. And I think that's fine. I think you can have both games exist and succeed. But I think that when you compare the time these games came out, Destiny 1 was cutting edge. And in some respect, in some regard, there are a lot of elements that are still, best genre. But the point I'm trying to drive home here is that at this stage of the game, around 15 to 20 minutes in, Destiny 1, we have very limited tools in our arsenal to deal with these kinds of challenges, and Bungie is throwing challenging, enemy encounters after you. Whereas in Destiny 2, you have many more tools at your disposal. The enemies, quite frankly, are not as dangerous to deal with. And again, we're kind of driving that feeling that the player has to succeed no matter what. And we're just giving them more tools to make that succeeding look flashy in different ways. Destiny 1, limited tools, difficult enemies. So again, we're just comparing two different games drastically at this point, if you've not been able to tell already. Again, as a reminder, Destiny 2 in these opening missions is constantly reminding you, use your super abilities, use your grenade abilities, and we just go back to what we talked about. Destiny 1 is combat, is having you use your abilities in a more limited fashion when you do get them, and the rewards are also going up incrementally instead of just making almost senseless upgrades from going item level 10 to a blue 300. Conclusion of the Destiny 1 second mission, and again, we're getting whites. Like I said, we're getting whites. You do get significant chunks of XP at the bottom as well, the mission completions, which feels awesome. And again, the advancement screen, so you're always able to see how you did, what upgrades you've got, and there is also a reward screen. I do think, speaking about the experience, big XP increases from Destiny 1 missions, I do think that Destiny 2 not having a general just experience level from killing things, from completing mission, does kind of hurt it. Not necessarily hurt it, but it does kind of make the player wonder, I'm getting all these items in the first hour I played that go from 10 to 300. And then as you'll see through the rest of the video, the blues that it does gives me, and even purples later on, they're still item level 300. So the game doesn't do a really good job at explaining what the gear upgrade game in Destiny 2 is, other than just going from greens to blues to purples to yellows. Whereas in Destiny 1, you pretty much stay at whites and greens for the entire hour. I didn't get a blue, I think, other than a sparrow. You didn't get a blue the entire time. So in Destiny 1, the player, it's just kind of more immediately understood what the gear upgrade is. Get items with higher attack or defense value, stay within the same tiers, because we're not making a whole lot of progression in Destiny 2. You just get all kinds of stuff thrown at you. Case in point, in Destiny 2, 20 minutes in, 25 minutes in, you can claim the exotic from the season pass. Now, here's the thing. I fully believe that if Destiny 1 had continued on for 10 years like Destiny 2 did, they probably would have eventually added a season pass track to the game to some capacity. I don't think that they would not have not done this. But again, comparing games in their current form, I have an exotic in Destiny 2 in less than 30 minutes of game time. Completely free. Didn't do anything but go to a menu and claim it. Destiny 1, I don't get an exotic the entire hour, and I probably will not get an exotic for multiple hours, if not days, in Destiny 1. So again, just right out of the gate, 30 minutes in, less than 30 minutes in, we have an exotic being given to us. And another thing, like I said, the actual item level of that exotic is lower than the item level of the item I had prior to that. So the game doesn't do a really good job at explaining, what it is I just got, what's exotic about it. You can, of course, inspect it, but taking this from a new player's perspective, are they going to know to inspect the weapon? Are they going to immediately know what makes it better than the previous items? The answer is no, and the game doesn't do a very good job at explaining that to you, at least in D2's, common menus it has right now. Now, in Destiny 1, when you have these minute upgrades, it almost has the player check and see what's better on them and possibly go in and ask the question, what's better about this item than this one? Whereas in Destiny 2, it doesn't make an attempt to explain it to you. And actually, if you pay attention, it seems to harm you in some ways. Some people may look at that exotic and go, hey, this is a lower level. Why would I use it? The rewards in Destiny 2, we're getting item level 300 blue rarity sniper rifle. And then you're also starting to get exotic quests in Destiny 2 30 minutes in. So transitioning back to D1, same time, just completed that second mission, still getting whites asking us to go back to the tower. And again, kind of reminding what we're talking about there, where the progression in Destiny 2 is probably better, whereas it throws you mission to mission to mission to mission, back to back to back to back. In D1, you had to go to the orbit, then you had to go to the tower, then you had to go to Earth again. So D2 probably does take the cake when it comes to streamlining playing missions as a player. But then the other thing that kind of introduces is making it feel like we're on a treadmill where it's just pushing us through. It's throwing lots of stuff at us. We're not having to do a whole lot of thinking. Whereas in D1, even just things like that, where it's breaking up, okay, now you go to the tower, now you go to orbit, it teaches the player what to do, but the player is still the one doing it. Whereas in Destiny 2, it just kind of pushes you through it and doesn't really teach you, is my own analysis of what's happening as far as the mission and design. And the first significant upgrade in Destiny 1 comes from the Cryptarch, getting a white to a green. You can actually look on here and see, what's the stat it's giving to us. Not able to use it for some time. So, meaningful upgrade in D1, and we've gone from a white to a green that we cannot even use yet. And as I was mentioning, Destiny 1 does a little bit of a better job if you are that type of person who wants to choose what to do next instead of being just pushed through. It does give you missions, it does give you the destination map. You can quickly compare between two missions, descriptions on them, level of enemies. Back over in Destiny 2, at the exact same time, we're opening up chests in the open world, and we're getting whites. Again, going from green 10s to blue 300s. Now, this is actually something that I had not done in Destiny 2, which was these upgrade missions that essentially throw the socket and fragment system at the player. It does give you at the bottom, like it basically tells you equip it, equip this, equip that, but the game doesn't necessarily tell you what to use over one another, and does give the player that burden to read over what these things are doing and understand how does this affect the build. But as far as a problem with this mission or this design, the bigger problem I have is that the mission, if you've never ran this before, is essentially just reinforcing the whole idea spam abilities, spam abilities, spam abilities. And this is, in my opinion, something that lots of the free to play games out there do. You unlock something new and powerful, and you get a mission where you just kind of spam use it over and over and over again, I guess to make the player feel awesome. But if you've asked me, it just seems to be pointless necessarily. I mean, I know how a grenade works, I know how the melee and stuff works, and I'm trying to think of this again from the lens of a new player. And still, even from the lens of a new player, I don't know what the benefit is having a mission where you can spam these abilities as much as you want. I mean, it almost devalues the ability if I can use it as much as I want. You transition over to D1, and we're in a mission where we're being thrown into the hive for the first time. Again, like I talked about, we're being introduced to them naturally in the game mission to experience them for the first time, not from some cutscene. We have one grenade at our disposal, and we use it at maybe a good time, maybe a bad time. We don't get it back for a while. And this is the first time that the enemies get us to a low health threshold. Transition back over to Destiny 2, and we're again slinging grenades, slinging supers, slinging our melees. The mission is reinforcing that idea that you're a super powerful guardian, throw your stuff all the time. This is how you can slaughter through waves of enemies. Just differences that you can make a decision for yourself if you like it or don't like it. the missions seem to drag on for a long time, if I can say so. Back over in Destiny 1, we've just hit level 4. We're still primarily navigating these missions through gunplay. We're still introducing ourselves to the Hive for the first time. At this point in the game, we're about 30 minutes in. We unlocked our super ability on Destiny 1. Now, in Destiny 2, when you unlock your supers and stuff, it gives it to you. You can throw it, you know. But D1, you unlock the ability. Got to go through the process of generating ability and energy over time. So, that's just a difference there. Still in this extremely long and, in my opinion, unnecessary mission in Destiny 2. There's not necessarily any teaching going on from this mission other than just throw your abilities as much as you want to and I guess remind the player how good it feels to use them. So, again, it's fun, but pointless fun is my kind of gripe towards it. If it was teaching me different things about my abilities, sure, but it really just has a menu that says, hey, put this on, and then for the rest of the mission, just spam it as much as you want. Back over in Destiny 1, we completed, I think, the third mission now. We're still primarily getting whites. We do have a few different quests that have been given to us from the vendors at the tower. Not all of them we're able to do, but we do actually unlock our Sparrow at about the 35-40 minute mark in Destiny 1. And then back in Destiny 2, once you complete that mission where you're essentially spamming your abilities with your first fragment and aspect, you get a full set of blue armor that is 300. And again, I'm going to call out the game doesn't really do a good job at explaining to the player what is happening, what are these gear upgrades, because some of the gear pieces that I've already got up to this point are 300. I had a 300 blue chest piece, blue boots, and bond on. So the 300 pieces I just got seemingly have no differences other than the stat differences. So again, the gear system just from the get-go of Destiny 2, it seems to have multiple issues that are just stabbing it and keeping it from being a good, progression feeling when you start a new character for the first time. A few more minutes of talking to Halshan, and boom, legendary weapon, purple, 300. We're like 40 minutes in. We get an exotic key as well. I wonder what that could be for. But we've got our first legendary weapon. And again, it's 300. It's the same attack level as the weapon we had in that slot. You do get a little splash screen explaining, like, oh, legendary weapons are super powerful. They have lots of perks and stuff on them. So at least with that, it kind of gives you an explanation over what legendaries are and their power. And boom, exotic. I mean, we're at like the 40-minute mark, and we've got the second exotic in Destiny 2, the tractor cannon. Back to my original point, though, the game does, at least when you get your first legendary, explain, like, hey, these are legendaries that could have multiple perks and combinations. At least that explained what purples are good for, whereas it didn't with anything else. Back in Destiny 1, we're running missions. We're getting green engrams to drop pretty consistently in the Cosmodrome. And again, we are beginning to start to be able to use melee abilities and grenade abilities in D1, but to no level near as many times as often as we can in D2. Primary combat is executed through gunplay. I tend to like fusion rifles. I'm using a fusion rifle a lot in the opening hour of D1. Grenades and melees when I can, and then back in D2, where again being reminded by the game, use your abilities as much as you can. And then there's not actually a whole lot of reason to use them. I could forgive this a little bit more if it was telling us to use these abilities during key moments of combat where it can shake the fight up. But I don't think at any point in time when it recommended me to do it, it was like saying you should do this now, because it was just saying use it because you've got it. That's kind of how it felt. Back in D1, you're in this longer mission, these little bit lengthier missions. Again, combat's primarily done through gunplay. You get a grenade, you get a melee, you get a super, you pop it when you can, but the time in which you do pop these abilities in D1 is much more impactful on the fight as far as how the outcome could go. And then back in D2, we've got the last array mission, which was ported over. Again, reminding us to use these abilities. One super, shooting our primary weapon, our secondary weapon a couple of times, and feels like most of these engagements are over pretty quick. Back over in Destiny 2, we actually unlock our Sparrow after working with Shahan for another mission or so. And then back in D1, we are, as we speak, completing, I believe, the fourth mission in the hour's time we've been here. Still getting good amounts of XP for completing these missions, and the player understands that every time you complete these missions, you get kills, you get experience toward unlocking new abilities in your subclass. End of mission screen, we're still getting whites, but those whites most of the time are attack increases or defense increases. So again, the progression system of loot in D1 just still continuing to make sense from a player perspective. Consistent green engrams, like I was talking about, we're starting to move from the white tier to the green tier. And if you actually start looking at some of these items, it makes it clear on the tooltip, the perk at the bottom. This is what is on this weapon that's different from the current one you've got. And then additionally, you can see that those perks need upgraded. All of them are grayed out, which means we need to have experience earned while having them equipped in order to take advantage of those perks. So about 50 minutes in, 55 minutes into D1, we're starting to get greens at somewhat of a consistent basis, but again, we're still having to play missions and complete content in order to get those. Back over in D2, we are about 50 minutes in, and we've got a purple helmet, second legendary, and looking at them again, they're the exact same 300 number, whatever that means, power number. The stats on the purple items aren't significantly better than the blue items, and it's flashing to us about our power, but the items we're putting on aren't increasing our power. So again, it begs the question, what's the point in putting on better armor for the opening of the game? Does it really address the point in that? Kind of the last mission that was done in that hour we had for Destiny 2 was getting towards the completion of the Shawhan quest line, the opening quest line, I should say. This Wizard Navota on the Cosmodrome with the tools and the ability spam and the exotics that it's given to the player. It's not that much of a challenge at all as far as completing that. If you were to put me in a position where I don't have these abilities, maybe I have one grenade every engagement, a few white weapons, maybe a blue weapon, it could make these fights a little bit more interesting in D2, but again, that's not the case. They're throwing a lot more at you. In D1, coming towards the ending of our play time, our play session, we've moved now having 4 green pieces of armor, 1 green weapon, and we've got 4 of our core abilities unlocked, and we're now actually starting to get some stat increases on our subclass. So 50 minutes in, that's where we're at for the D1 subclass system. Continuing through a few of the main quests. Back at the Cosmodrome on Destiny 1, we are going through the process of the last array mission. There are still some players here even today, starting for the first time, probably seeing other content creators play and wanting to give it a try, or maybe like myself, just wanting to load it back up for the old sake of doing so and experiencing it. Progressing through these missions, I mean, I can't hammer the point in enough that gunplay is primarily what drives most of these missions, these engagements. And it feels good. Destiny's gunplay is amongst the best in the industry. So putting it front and center in these Destiny engagements is, I don't necessarily think it was Bungie's point. I just think it ended up happening where Destiny 2, the most efficient way to go through missions is to spam abilities, and they've allowed players to do that. They're pushing players to do that. Then back in D2, again, 55-minute mark, we have our 3rd legendary weapon. The attack level, the item level on it's the exact same of what we've got. It's a same purple. So again, a player may wonder what's the point in equipping it other than it just slightly firing a different fire rate and looking different. Outside of that, there may not be an immediate know of the player what's different about it. And then the last array mission in D1, it's pretty notable from the music that's in the mission. From a difficulty perspective, we've got our super, our grenade, our melee. We've got some different weapons. We're still on whites, though. Not overly challenging, but definitely if you use abilities at the wrong time, if you aren't hitting shots with your weapons, you will, by all means, die. These ships as well, there's lots of environmental hazards in D1 that weren't in D2, from the big ships shooting at you, shrieker blasts blowing up and attacking the player like little seeking darts. Decided to use my super there. You never know if something spawns later on that I should have used that on. I won't get that back for the engagement. But I have to say, the process of getting the ability unlocks, of equipping the better armor, of making some of the decisions about the weapons I'm keeping and using in D1, it makes overcoming these missions and, not too big of a challenges, but it makes them more worth it. Feels better, that level up I've just gotten. It feels like I've gone through somewhat of a smaller journey, or a small journey of going through the missions of upgrading my character to earn that. Whereas in Destiny 2, a lot of it just feels like going through the treadmill and stuff being given to me. not having to give a whole lot of thought into what I'm doing. And that's just my opinion. Maybe it's somebody who's played the game for so long, I'm not thinking a bunch, but even as a new player, the game doesn't really force you to make decisions on a minute to minute basis. It kind of just throws things at you, tells you how to play, and throws exotics and a lot of loot at you, I guess, to keep people playing in its attempt to. And Destiny 2, unlocking your abilities eventually gets to the point where you can just spend Glimmer. I mean, there is a transaction base here. You could farm Glimmer and then come back and unlock all your abilities. Back in D1, though, it's one of those things where you have to grind for them. And additionally, in case you weren't paying attention, whenever you choose your subclass kit in Destiny 2, it gives you a full set of other legendary weapons and a fourth exotic, or maybe third exotic. I believe it's a third exotic we've got in D2. Back in D1, still maintaining to get greens and white upgrades. And then I believe this is the last activity I was able to do in that hour playtime. Again, white shotgun, but the white shotgun does have a higher attack level if you compare it. So, and then back over in D2, we are continuing to get legendaries in a pretty consistent basis through our tour of the tower, which was the last mission that I was able to do in Destiny 2. Cryptarch gives you a little bit of a spiel about seasons, but he doesn't even say it. He actually just has a bunch of text you have to read. So, and then you get brought to the reward pass screen, which is reminding players, free players, if you've not purchased the reward pass, or if you want to, then there are an option to pay for it and get cosmetics, to get weapons, armor, etc., etc. So again, bringing the player to and keep in mind, I'm a player who has everything bought. I have all the expansions bought, all the DLC bought for Destiny 2, still reminding me to go to the season pass and make a purchase on it if I haven't already. And then from talking with Zaval, I believe that marks the ending of the kind of intro tour quest, the tower in Destiny 2. So if we go back in kind of summary of where each of our classes have gotten to, we've gotten about 4 upgrades in to the Destiny 1 subclass. We're all white weapons. I don't think we've got a heavy weapon upgrade the entire time. We just got 1 heavy weapon. We are at a point where we're actually using 2 greens and 3 whites, and some of those whites are higher defense level than the greens we were using. So again, it's giving the player choice on keeping the greens with those perks or choosing the items with the higher defense value. From a quest screen and a progress, we've got several quests given to us. We still have that primary main quest that has missions on Earth and I think the moon unlocked. And then from an inventory perspective, we've collected some materials from breaking things down, collecting spin metal on destinations. The only exotic anything that I saw in the entire hour I played Destiny 1 was whenever you dismantle your Kvostov, there is a schematic for the exotic one you could earn much later on in the game. So I will call out, yes, there was one exotic thing I saw, but it wasn't a piece of armor, it wasn't a piece of gear, it wasn't a weapon, it was something that you use much later on in the game as a quest. And then from Destiny 2, we have a full set of blue gear. We've collected several purple pieces as well that we can choose between. Again, pretty much the progression from whites to greens to blues was pretty much skipped. In the first 10 minutes, we were starting to get blues as well as getting purples very soon after that. And again, the game doesn't do a very good job at explaining like power. Like we went from getting 10s to 300s, and then for pretty much the entire hour, I never got anything over 300. So the whole progression element of running content to get more gear that's level 300, again, it just introduces many questions into the gear progression system of D2 that, quite frankly, don't have a good answer. From a weapon perspective, we've gotten like 10 legendary weapons. We've gotten three to 4 exotic weapons. And again, same problem. We went from like level 10 weapons to 300. So all the weapons we're getting in that later half of the hour, they never had a damage increase. They were all 300. So again, it kind of begs the player to ask the question, what's this gear I'm getting? What is increasing about it? Is it just the same effectiveness of gear, but just different looks? From a subclass element, we've got, all of our things unlocked. We had all of the abilities unlocked in the first 10 minutes, but the subclass and fragment system, it was introduced to us, if you want to call it that, in one mission where we were just spamming our abilities the whole time. As the player and the new player, you can kind of read what some of them do. You could try to put a build together. but it was all rolled out and thrown at you very quickly. Whereas in D1, you've gotten a few upgrades. You know meaningfully how to upgrade the next one by just doing missions and building XP. In Destiny 2, you actually do have many new menus unlocked from like the season menu, the season hub, the portal is something you now have access to after that first hour of completion. The game doesn't really do a good job, at least in the first hour, maybe it will in the second hour, of introducing what these menus, what is the portal, what are these objectives and weekly objectives, other than just like a bounty system. Again, the player is left to look at many of these and deduce the purpose behind them without the game telling you, which can be a good thing and be a bad thing at the same time. In my opinion, it's one of the bad things about Destiny, where many new players see these screens, they may never come back and see them a second time. The season 28 lawless screen, the portal, essentially, it's got the latest expansion, the Edge of Fate, the tower. Again, just it's throwing a lot at the player, and there doesn't seem to be a linear thread of progressing them to different elements of the game. The destination screen on D2, in D1, we've got the Earth, and we just unlocked the moon at the end of our playtime. In Destiny 2, we've got Neptune, Europa, we've got the moon, Dreaming City, Savathun's throne world, the Cosmodrome, many other nodes that are grayed out or unlocked. Doesn't immediately tell you how to get to them either. So in D1, all these nodes that you don't have access to are just hidden. You unlock them over time through doing the campaign. In D2, it just kind of throws all kinds of stuff. And many of these actually have patrol zones you could go to as a new player, and it doesn't really explain what's going on these planets, what's going on in these destinations, where'd they come from, how are they introduced. I mean, Europa, Dreaming City, and Savathun's Throne World, and Neptune for that matter, all of these were introduced in big story expansions. So them just being here and not really explained to the player how they got here, again, I kind of fault Bungie for getting to that point. And like I said, as a new player, you can inspect any of these and see all these different missions and all these different content pieces. And the game, again, in my opinion, as a new player who shouldn't have access and be doing any of these, the game shouldn't really show you them yet. But that's a design decision that I guess Bungie will have to look at. We do have multiple exotic quests at the end of our hour session as well for D2. And then we come to D1. The destination screen's pretty restricted. We've got the Earth, we've got the tower, and we've got the moon. And the moon is where our next missions are at. So that's why we have that unlocked. That's it. That's what the game gives to us. There's many other destinations. There are some actual spots where you could guess there are destinations that are going to go there. But until the player is at an adequate level and cool, they've got to that point of the story, it doesn't show them. So again, kind of harping back on that point, Destiny 1 introduces elements of the game to the player when it's appropriate, whereas Destiny 2 introduces a lot of elements of the game to the player when, in my opinion, they should not be interacting with him at all. So that's one thing to sum up the differences in screens. But with that, we've actually reached the hour ending of my playtime with both of them. So a quick summary, because we are already approaching a good amount of time here. Both games throw things at the player in the first hour. Destiny 2 throws a whole lot more. And some immediate, most notable things in that first hour is Destiny 1 is slower. And this is going to be that kind of permanent argument that all kinds of gamers have when you compare games like old school RuneScape versus RuneScape 3, classic WoW versus retail WoW. You could kind of put Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 in that same issue structure where you have the old game versus the new game, and players like both games for different reasons, and some games do better. The first game does things better than the second does things better than the first. When it comes to Destiny 1 is doing several things better despite it being slower and giving things to the player in a much slower pace. Combat feels more visceral and dangerous in the beginning. It gives you less tools. The loot progression in the first hour is more sensible. It makes more sense to a new player who's never played either of these games to find items with higher defense, find items with higher attack, and put them on. In Destiny 2, this only happens one time. The very first item you get in each slot goes from 10 to 300. There is no white items. There are no green items. It goes straight to blues. In the first 20 minutes, you're also getting purples in Destiny 2, and you're getting exotics in Destiny 2. So the entire loot progression of a looter shooter in Destiny 2 is just broken. That's the only word you can use to describe it. It's broken, and it makes unlocking purples and exotics feel soulless very early on. Very early on, it does. And Bungie, I guess, has tried to make up for this by having so many of them in the game to collect, but it doesn't make up from the fact that getting a legendary or an exotic in D1 is an entirely different thing than getting it in D2. Combat, we've talked about. Story, I mean, here's the thing. The first hour of Destiny 1, you're playing the vanilla campaign. You're introduced to different elements of the game in the way that Bungie intended. The entire first hour of story and quest in Destiny 2 is really just for new players. There's no major bad guys. There's no major story introduced, no elements, no characters you're introduced to. Shahan is there just for new players, and you never deal with him again. Not a whole lot to talk about when it comes to story. But mainly in the first hour, the gear, the progression, those are the elements that you can immediately tell between both games are drastically different, and in my opinion need to be brought in. Maybe they could bring up the speed in which you get some things from D1, and maybe you could bring down the speed and things you get from D2. Find a happy medium. There definitely needs to be that loot progression of whites, greens, blues, legendaries, and exotics having meaning and rarity again. But yeah, that's the first hour of both games. Just raw, my thoughts about them. So I know the commentary about going through different things. I don't expect I'm going to do this for every single hour of both games, but by all means, I am down to do like the second day of Destiny 1, what it was like, the second day of Destiny 2, what's it like, what you'd accomplish, if you guys would be interested in seeing that. But hopefully, this gives you a kind of a peek behind the curtain behind both of these games. When people say Destiny 1's better than Destiny 2, these are the things that we think it are. I think that's better for combat, the weapon progression, the loot progression, the linear nature of just a new player getting into the game for the first time. It makes sense. It gives you things piece by piece. Destiny 2 does not have a good loot progression, does not give you things piece by piece, and overall just has many aspects of D2 lacking a soul, I guess is a way to sum it up. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts, your comments, your feedback on D1, D2, what you've got to say, and we'll see you again soon.